Alright everybody, welcome to episode 25. It's been months since we've been doing an interview. I'm delighted, look, sitting laughing.
Mate, I don't know what's been happening, but we're back.
In a new studio and everything. The day we announced our new name, new graphics, it's mental.
Mate, I don't know where they look. I don't know where they look. The camera, look at them. I'm a bit lost here.
But what I'd say is, absolutely delighted to have Ayr Connolly on the day. We've been chasing him for ages to get him in. So, Ayr, cheers for coming on.
No, cheers for having us, lads. I know I've pied you off a couple of times, but life's been busy, so it's good to be here.
You've stuck yourself in.
By the way, that it's good to see you again. Last time I seen you, I was paying you at the Sav, so if you've got that tenner, mate, if you've got that tenner, I'll take it.
To be fair, he gave you a great night that night.
Mate, I bought you a bottle of water, so that's a weekies.
Mate, he's the only guy I've seen an 8-man mark the manager like that. Maxie, are you sure you want to go? I've got nowhere to go, Maxie. You might need to stay.
Yeah, the man, I don't think it's a good decision bringing him on, mate. If he's going to come for me, mate, this is going to be a good night.
Look, before we get into that, a wee shout out to our sponsor, Mad Bush Beer. One of Scotland's newest craft beer brewers, and they're delighted to back PG and Dak podcast, the best football podcast in the West. That's their words, not mine.
Is it?
Aye.
That's right, that'll be right.
They're here to find your beer. They passionately believe there's a beer out there for everyone. Check out their website at madbushbeer.com or find them on Facebook and Instagram for details on how to buy and try out the Bankies G81 Pale Ale. Back your local team, no matter who you support. So, cheers to the guys for that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Hopefully the West fans get behind it because they back us and we're all about the West. So,
correct.
No better thing to support a West of Scotland beer, basically.
Definitely.
All good.
Let's get in it. Aaron, let's start right at the beginning. Right, talk about how's your childhood growing up? Because obviously we know you've had your mental health issues and stuff, and you're very open about it. What was life like for you as a Wayne?
Grew up in halfway, mate, or Cambuslang, which is obviously just outside Glasgow, just no far for the East End, mate. So I'm the oldest of 7, which is a bit mental.
No, they're in your house.
So I'm oldest of 7, mate. So life was good growing up, to be honest. You played football every day, wanted to be a football player, like most guys in the west of Scotland. So that's just in my memories of childhood, mate. I come home from school, me and my brothers going out and playing football, and that was all we done constantly. Obviously, I went into youth academies really young, like 8 or 9 years old. Celtic signed me, so I stayed in youth academies until I was 20 and the first team at Ayr. So my football career kicked off pretty quickly as a young kid. Like I was always highly rated and stuff. So just done what I loved, mate. It's unfortunate that it didn't work out as I'd hoped. As I'm sure you boys will know, loads of people listening will know, football's very difficult in terms of that. But yeah, that's all I remember, mate. It was just going and either playing or going and watching Celtic, and that was it. That was all I ever wanted to do. So it was aim for school and go play football.
You went full time with Hibs when you left school.
Aye.
We spoke briefly before we came on about kind of what we felt it was like full time. How did you find your time at Hibs?
Really struggled with it, mate. So I moved away. I signed my deal just before John Park went to Celtic, actually. So me and Callum Booth were the last 2 players John Park signed for Hibs, which is a weird fact. But we signed the deal in January. I was in 4th year at school, so I knew I was leaving. So basically, Hibs took me out of school, and it was like, just come through, train every day, you get your schoolwork sent to you, and just work your way through it. Done my exams in the May, and then I eventually moved through Edinburgh in the June, the start of pre-season. I'm only 15 years old, but like just about to turn 16, but I'm 15 as I moved through there, and they put me up in digs with a boy who was 17, but I was the youngest out of all the full-time boys, and most people won't believe it now, but I was really, really quiet, like really quiet. I wouldn't say a word most days, mate. Now, football changing rooms are notoriously loud places, and it's always a laugh and a joke, and as I got on in my career, I was at the heart of that. But as a kid, mate, I didn't say a word, so I really struggled to adapt. I struggled being away from home so far. I know it's only 45 mile, but at 15 years old, mate, that feels like 500 mile. So after about 3 or 4 months, I'd started to, what probably was anxiety, but I didn't know that then, but I started to really struggle in terms of nobody would go to bed in the morning, no wanting to go into training, and no one at the club really took a handle on it or really thought about it. They maybe just thought that I was homesick, and it was just always, he's just homesick, he's just struggling with that. And that's probably an aspect of it, but there was definitely mental health stuff there that just wasn't detected at the time, and I didn't really know how to speak about it or who to speak to. You know, I couldn't go to my coach and say, I'm feeling a bit sick in the morning before I come in, or I'm feeling really, I've got butterflies, or I'm anxious. Wouldn't have been a word I would have used, but that's probably what it was. So I just stopped going to training. I just wouldn't turn up. I think the club eventually pulled me in and we spoke about it, and I just said to them, I can't do this anymore. So I'd signed a 3-year deal. That was what was probably the best youth in the country at the time. When you look at, you know, the players at Brown, O'Connor, Riordan, that had come a couple of years before me, Whittaker, Thompson, Lewis Stevenson was just above me, Paul Hanlon was just a year above me. Obviously, Callum Booth went and played for the first team. I think my age group actually went and won the League and Cup double in 2009. So it was a really good opportunity for me, but I just mentally couldn't cope with it, and I decided one day just to walk away and went into the club that day. I remember speaking to Bill Hendry, who was the head of youth at the time, took me upstairs and just let me sign a form, let me go, mate. Just turned 16 years old, walked away from Easter Road that day, never even picked my stuff up for the flat, just left and went to a homeless place. Phoned the Glasgow City Council, went to a homeless hostel, mate, and that was me. Just,
Is that, so
aye, mate,
that's how it ended then,
So I always
Wow,
say
man.
this, and it's nothing against the club, but I just feel like at that time, man, if someone put their arm around me and just try to help me, I'll just say, look, stick it out for to end the season, or see you out the next 6 months, see how this
Yeah.
goes. Let us try and help you. Let us do whatever. But and I felt like I couldn't go home then either, because I couldn't go back to my uncles and their stuff who would like take me all over the country my full youth career and say to them, by the way, I've just fucking gave up a 3-year deal at Hibs because I'm not feeling good.
Did you think the club know you were going to basically be going homeless?
No, I think they probably thought I was just going to go home. But I
Aye,
mean,
to
they let a
family and
16-year-old boy walk away for Easter Road. I didn't even get my stuff at the flat. It wasn't
And I
until
take
months
it-
later.
I take it you went into detail about how you felt and
I think
where
I
your
probably
head was at.
tried. Probably not as much detail as I would give now, because I didn't understand
Aye.
it. But I think it was just all put down to he's homesick. Just let him go home. And then weirdly, mate, actually, and I gave him a shout. It was Murdo McKinnon who got back in touch with me somehow. I can't remember how he did. But he was at Accies at the time and Ashfield.
Right.
And it was him that got me back playing football, because I chucked it for about 6 months.
Aye.
And he got a hold of my number somehow and got me back into Accies.
I want to go back to Hibs in a minute. You talk about, obviously, you've went homeless and stuff. You went to Queen's Park Hotel, which I worked near it, so I know it very well. I know how horrible a place it is. How's that happened? Because obviously you've been close to your family, you've got a big family. How have you ended up
Just
homeless?
mate, the feeling of letting people down, I couldn't go back. So I remember having a mobile phone at the time and just ignoring it. And then I think I eventually spoke to people. My mum one day, eventually I spoke to her and I just told her not to come and find me, just because I was like, I don't want people knowing that I'm this. I felt like a failure, mate. I felt like I'd worked so hard to get that opportunity that boys would have killed for. Like at the club I was at, I was highly rated. Like I remember getting pulled in one time by John Collins, who was the manager. Pulled in and said, not seen a player, like, I hate saying stuff like this, but he'd said to me, I'd never seen a youth player who plays with 2 feet the way you do. I remember that happening, and I just remember being. There's always that player or that boy from each age group. I felt like that probably was me at Hibs, me or Callum Booth at the time. And the more I thought about it, walking away from that, it was just like I can't face people, because I've given up the biggest opportunity in my life.
How was your mindset before you went to HubSpot? Was your mindset, do you feel as if it was strong, or did you have feelings
I
and
always had-
anxiety and what
Aye,
you
I-
think is anxieties now like that?
I always never felt. I always had feelings of not being good enough, no matter how well I done or how well people would tell me I would do. Like I was always over critical of myself. That still happens to this day, probably, and has happened throughout my football career. But I was always super critical of myself. But I think that might have been a good thing if I could have got a handle on it a wee bit, or if someone could have helped give me guidance, and not having to go at anyone in particular. Like, you know, these people are looking after 20 or 30 young boys. It's difficult for them, and that, you know, difficult to manage that situation when you have that many boys full time. You're trying to push someone to the first team, try to look after them all. So I understand why I wasn't a priority for the club, but it's still difficult.
See now you coach youth level and stuff. What do you think that more should be done for coaches? Because like I coached boys club when I was younger, and I was kind of in my mid-20s and stuff, and I didn't really think about that type of thing. And we're all kind of roughly the same age, where it was never something ever spoken about at football. Was your mental health? It was avoided at all costs. I'd imagine. Do you think there's something that, obviously you have your badges and stuff, and it's quite well renowned here that we have a very good setup for getting good coaches. Do you think that it should be implemented into these kind of courses, a mental health side of it?
It's starting now. So it started lockdown. They made a course available for all coaches. I think they're making it. I think they're saying that now you need to do it. So previously it was like a part of your continuous improvement as a coach. You can go do this mental health course. I think that's changing, and they're going to say that you need to have that if you're going to coach at any level, which I think is a massive step, obviously. But it's just about society, mate. Football will catch up with society. So the more society evolves and adapts, and we start speaking about this and having these conversations and understanding each other better, then football will catch up eventually. And I think that's probably we're on the road to that. But you know, there's still going to be the thing about football, and we could talk about it all night, man. But you're set up to fail. You're bringing in 20 boys full time every year at the highest level, and only one or two of them are going to make it. And everyone knows that. Everybody knows that. But we need to carry the full squad so we can have youth leagues. But you're always going to have boys spat out the other end. It's just about how we put in proper aftercare for these players.
I think I seen something with Crystal Palace or something, man. They're trying to do a thing now with they're looking after players for 3 years after they go. The scary thing for me is, and I don't like to talk about it because I don't want it as if to go back in your past and stuff like that. But for this, the purpose of this podcast, if one person's listening and reaches out for help, that's what we're all about. Both yourself for the work you're doing with your charity and that, and us as a podcast as well. I think the big thing for me is you've been into Hibs and you've been in there as a full-time football player, as you've said yourself. It's a dream for every young boy, and then you've ended up coming out of that and then homeless and basically square one, nowhere to go. And I'll be honest with you, mate. I take my hat off to you at the age of 16 to go, and I know you're saying you maybe pied the phone and stuff like that, and maybe there's other things that you might have thought, oh, I never dealt with that well, but you're here today telling the story. You've obviously...
I mean, obviously, like, I think I spent 6 weeks in the home, about 6 weeks anyway, in the homeless place. I've told this story before on podcast, but mate, terrifying as you said, PG. Like, I'd wake up in the morning, man, and all I had in the room was a kettle and a bed and a TV, and I'd wake up in the morning and go buy like 2 or 3 pot noodles just to know like I can make them, I can eat, I can survive off them. It's the only thing I know how to make. It's the only thing I've got the utilities to make here, the utensils to make here. But I'd have to do it at like 6, 7 in the morning. There was a wee shop just round the corner because see, as soon as that door closed, see, you've been in places like these that are mental. There's a lot of people going through a lot of stuff, whether it be addiction issues, homelessness issues for themselves, mental health issues. I'm a 16-year-old kid, baby, just hiding behind a door like fucking police are turning up 2 or 3 times a day, and I'm like terrified, and not ashamed to admit that, mate. As I said, I could barely deal with getting slagged a bit in the football changing room for being quiet, let alone lie under the covers in a homeless hostel, being terrified. But I think I can openly say, hand on heart today, I wouldn't change it because I wouldn't be the person I am now if I hadn't gone through the experiences I have. And obviously, you know, we'll talk about the rest of the mental health stuff. I'm sure we'll cover it tonight, but obviously that a lot of it goes back to that time in my life where you speak about trauma and childhood experiences and stuff. Going through that at 15, 16, mate, that's going to make anyone struggle to deal with.
How much more did that impact you? How did that make your mental health worse? Well, obviously it would have made it worse, because that is a terrifying place to be, even when you're no 16. Like you said, the police are getting phoned there multiple times a day. The drugs in there is ridiculous. You've got the fear of somebody robbing your room every time that you possibly, even when you're in there. It's a horrendous place. What's going through your head that 6 weeks that you're in there?
Just survive, mate. Survive. Something's going to change. And that's all I remember. I remember just thinking something will change eventually. And actually ended up getting myself a job in a kitchen, just cleaning dishes. And that's how I got myself out of it. Like, just started working. And then I was privately renting a flat at 16 years old, mate, cleaning dishes. And obviously got back to playing football because Murdy McKinnon got in touch with me and said, come in at Ackies. Went in there and played to the end of the season, kind of got myself fit and playing again. Didn't work out there, sadly, but that was me back playing. And then that gave me the lift. I got a phone call for somebody at Ayr United saying would I go down there. And I went down there and that was it, mate. Went back full time down there and still worked in the kitchen because I didn't have the opportunity. Well, I could have went back home, but I'd sort of made my mind up that I wasn't. And you know, I just felt like that was me. I was out in the big world now and I was going to survive. So I was full time at United, done a college course in the afternoon, worked in a kitchen at weekends.
It's mental at 16. Yeah, I mean, at that time, you're at the point in your life where you know the most you've ever known at that time. But when you look back now, you're a child and you know nothing.
Not a clue.
Yeah, it's frightening because I'll be honest with you, with myself, I was lazy when I expected everything for my parents. So honestly, take my hat off to you as a man. I would even get drove around while doing a paper run. So for you to be that age and working, studying, and playing full-time football is unreal.
See, to be fair, like, just to show, because we've had a very similar upbringing, it's quite embarrassing to even admit it, to the fact that you're 16-year-old and you're having to do 2 jobs possibly and living yourself and stuff. I didn't move out my mum and dad's house till I was 24, and before I moved out, my mum used to make my lunch for me every day for my work. See, if she didn't make my lunch, she'd leave me a fiver it.
Did she?
Every day she'd leave a fiver if she didn't make my lunch for me. And you're like, at 24-year-old, that's how privileged it was. When I'd be like, I don't like Kate, you should be leaving my fiver if you've not made my lunch.
Mate, my ma still paid my phone bill last year. I'm there last year, but no, but see when you went here, as I don't know if that's where you were going to. See, I'm a mind reader with you now. It's just telepathic. But what changed at Ayr? Did you have a good time at Ayr, good spell at Ayr? And it was a better spell.
Felt comfortable, mate. So the first year 19s, I don't know how many I scored, 40 or 50 or something. I was just, something just clicked, mate. I was flying and I just felt comfortable with the boys. So we were full times. Only half the first team were full time, and then there was about 8 or 9 of us who were in the 19s. So what we done is we studied and we trained in the morning, then we had to study in the afternoon. We had to do like a football course, football performance or something it was called. But it was just a good laugh, mate. I was back with boys my own age, and because I was playing well and scoring and stuff, boys respect you. See you're a striker. I was a striker, so see when you're scoring goals, mate, you get instant respect in the changing room. Boys like you because they know that they can rely on you. And I started training. I was training with the first team boys every day, so I was training like Mark Roberts, Ryan Stevenson, Junior Mendes, boys like that. Dean Keenan, boys who got their arm around me a wee bit. So knew I was quiet, knew I was a bit different, knew there was maybe stuff going on that I didn't know about, but they helped you. So they helped you through training. They weren't on your case much. They did have the odd bit, but because there was only half of them full time as well, they needed the young boys. Although if they wanted a good training session, they needed us to be on it. So they had to kind of help you through that. It wasn't just like 2 young boys getting chucked into a first team squad of 20. So the atmosphere was good, and that first season, mate, I was just everything I had was going in, mate. Everything. See, when we played in the Sundays, mate, I just remember every time I shot, I felt like I was scoring, and I just kicked on, and then I ended up training with the first team at night as well. So I was just playing football constantly, and I loved it for my first 2 seasons at Ayr, mate. I loved it, and then obviously it took a wee turn again, but for that, particularly that first season at 19, just before I made my debut and stuff, I just felt like everything I'd done was right.
Do you think it helped that you were based in Glasgow and you had your own accommodation at the time?
I think it probably did. I passed my driving test really quickly as well. So like I remember getting the bus down every day for East Kilbride, mate, down to Prestwick or down to Ayr every single morning, and then that just made me want to do it. So I done my driving test when like 3 months I turned 17. So then I had a wee motor, I could get about a wee bit, pick some of the boys up. Like a boy went down with a boy for Paisley, I used to pick him up, drive down. Just gave me that wee bit of freedom. Then it was just a good bunch of boys, mate. I'm still in touch with 5 or 6 of them today. I mean, a couple of them are different, but in fact, one of the boys messaged me recently for Canada, and then another one of the boys is in New Zealand. So it's we just did a good squad. And like I said, I think that first team dynamic, because it wasn't just a couple of us training with the first team, so they had to take you in differently because they needed the 10 young boys to have a good training session. Otherwise their training was shite. So the half of them they took you in a different way than what it's usually like.
What's what you getting told at that time? Because obviously you're flying with a 19, scoring a stupid amount of goals. What are you being told for the first team manager at that time?
Just keep doing what I was doing, mate. So my first team manager was Brian Reid at the time. He played with Rangers and that, and but Brian used to train as well, so he would train in the morning with us, so you'd play against him and stuff. And I had never had a great relationship with him, especially towards the end, but you know, he just left you be, mate. It was more about the players around you, like I think like Dean Keenan, Scotty McLaughlin, boys like that, who were just encouraging you. Mark Roberts was great for me. Like Marco was unbelievable.
I was there with him.
He's touching everything. So I'd probably get one of the best touches I've ever seen. But he was just always encouraging you. He was never really on your case. It was always positive stuff, and that helped me. That really helped me a lot. It was something that I needed, because I was the type to see if you got on my case, I took it to heart. Especially when I was younger. Like, it changed the older I got, but when I was younger, if someone had a go at me, I would be like, oh, I don't want the ball anymore. Whereas they were just like, just keep going, keep doing what you're doing. And training with them every single day helped as well, even though it was only a handful of them. We used to do young V old all the time in a wee sevens part down at pro soccer in Ayr, and see playing against them every day, mate, and it got competitive. I just took me to a different level at that time.
I love that with senior pros. I love how senior pros will they look after themselves, but they're good at spotting things in young people and trying to help people and good characters and all that as well, and try to nurture and help young boys that are in the squad. So I love to hear things like that because I did see it and it wasn't to that same, not to the same like level of that. I don't think, but like I'm a massive character, but I've always said when I went into that senior dressing room, man, I was a mute and I wasn't me. And I was like, I actually just wanted to blend in with, but I wasn't blending in because I wasn't even doing it and I wasn't being myself, you know what I mean? So it's very difficult because we love football and it's what we all love and what we all enjoy. But I tell you what, one of the most ruthless places in it is a dressing room. It can be the most ruthless place if your face doesn't fit or it's not going for you or you're not enjoying it. Sometimes it's a horrible place to go
I think it's a massively insecure place. See, like when you're talking about there, people that go to you getting yourself, and I've always been a bit like that myself, but everything is just about this kind of false bravado stuff where you need to slaughter people, and it's like such an uncomfortable place to be. Again, we obviously spoke about it earlier. Being full time isn't what people think it is. I don't know in my experience from my limited time where I had it, and it was like I hated it, man. I didn't have a mindset for it. I couldn't take. Granted, at Clyde when I was there, the first team players were only like 2 and 3 year old on us because they were all young. But it was like guys would be slaughtering me, and I'd be like, I can't take this. I just in my head I'm like, I just want to crack this guy. I don't want to. I can't deal with this. When in actual fact, if you just go, aye, okay, and go on with it, it's no risk. You get by so much better, but it's difficult.
I think Conor McGregor, you crack me every day. After that picture I put on Twitter the day, mate, you'll be cracking me every day.
I think that's what it was. I was really lucky that the environment here was different. But the first season, at least, when there was only some of the boys full time, so I feel like they needed us because if they wanted to go training session, they had to keep us on side a wee bit. Because if they came in and slaughtered 9 or 10 young boys, mate, and our heads go down, the tempo of training just goes like that, and then they're just wasting their time being there. So I think that made for a slightly easier environment to what you usually hear when boys go up to the first team, where you don't want to touch the ball, or you want to hide, and I still got that the next season when I had to train at night as well with the first team, and that's when the rest of the boys were coming in. I still found that quite difficult, and when I adapted to becoming an actual first team player, that's when I started to struggle a wee bit again with the sort of dressing room environment. See, when you weren't in the 19s anymore, and it was like fucking you had to get a result on a Saturday, and you're feeling the pressure of that. I struggled with that a wee bit, like mentally couldn't cope with that. Like we were in the first division of what's the championship now, but we got relegated that season, mate, and I remember just hearing boys talking about we can't go down. Like I need my money, I can't go down, we need to stay up, and like that was the sort of conversations that were happening, and that weighed on me. And then we go the last day of the season, we go away to Morton and we're 1-0 up, goes back to 1 each, and I come on, fucking ball comes in the box, fizzes across me, and I put it wide, and Morton got the part and score. And I just remember going, I can't believe this. Like I don't think I ever recovered for that year. I just like that one miss, mate, just I felt like I almost blamed myself for United going down. Didn't matter what happened to 36 games other than that. Like I missed one chance at Morton and just don't forgive myself for it. And then you start thinking the ramifications that boys who were full time now don't have full time contracts available because we're in the second division. And I found that really hard. And that was when again I started to think, am I good at not good enough, but mentally can I cope with this, the pressure of this? And also I had to take a wage cut when we went down. I'm trying to run a flat. I'm only 18 at this point still. And I now need to go, I need to pick up an extra shift in the kitchen. I need to, after my game on a Saturday now, I need to go work in the kitchen, then doing all day on the Sunday. And that just became a really difficult thing to manage. And I think that's when the first 6 months of my third season went fairly well. I was kind of in and out the team, but when I'd played, I'd done well. And then we were talking about it earlier, I dropped out of the squad one Saturday and chapped the manager's door and never got a sniff again. I'm just a young boy, eager to play, mate, 19-year-old. Chapped his door and he said, don't come near my door on a Saturday, I'll speak to you at training. And they didn't even speak to us, and that was me. So I had to make the decision then where I think I was on £110 a week or something full time. I was like, this isn't it, I can't keep doing this, can't work in my kitchen and do this. And I just started applying for jobs, mate, in offices and just hoped for the best and eventually got one.
After that, you kind of eventually went into a career in finance.
Yeah.
How do you end up getting into something like that when, like us, you had no qualifications?
I'm a clever guy. I was just applying for jobs, and it was my bird at the time. Her mum worked in Scottish Friendly in Blythewood Square actually, and she just said to me, "Why come in and do an apprenticeship?" Like started off opening mail, mate, in an office, and then like I done, even though I pied on my exams, mate, I got 6 1s and 2 2s, even though I didn't go to school for 6 months. So like I'm naturally fairly clever. So when I went in and done that, and I'd always kind of had an interest in sort of finance anyway, I just worked really hard, mate, and worked my way up, and eventually, moved through a company in Edinburgh, and I was there for about 8 or 9 years. I was running a department of 75 people and stuff. I just had I don't know what it is. I just have this work ethic, mate. I don't know what or why it happened. It's probably a lot to do with my mental health as well, that you sometimes feel so bad it's easier just to block it out by doing something else, and I just worked as hard as I could. And as I said, mate, you learn at 16 years old when you're living off pot noodles that you learn how to adapt and how to deal with situations, and it just became that if I needed to focus on something, I could do it.
How was your mindset when you're saying when you went into the dressing room you had issues and situations that arose within the dressing room, and then you've went and you've ran a team of 75? How did the pressure of that feel? Were you any different in the work environment?
I don't know. I enjoyed the pressure in the work environment. I don't know what it is. I enjoyed the stress of it.
You think it was different? It was all definitely
totally different, mate. It was like far more pressure, like dealing with millions of pounds a day going out the door. But I enjoyed that. I thrived in that environment. I don't know why. I'm a bit older and I'd learned a lot, obviously. But being fully honest, mate, it was probably just an escape for what was actually going on in my head. So I could just go into work and like I'm here for the next 14, 15 hours and I've got fucking 50 things to go through and they need to get done. Then you just go in and do it. And then I didn't have to think about everything else that I was maybe feeling over here. That didn't matter. But then, as you know, you only suppress it for so long and then you end up in Levendale. And that's what happened to me. And I suppose that's the flip side of it, that if you don't give yourself time to breathe and to think about things, that if you do have stuff going on and you're not talking about it, then you end up where I was, or worse.
You're 23-year-old, you're obviously with Siobhan at this point. The wee fella's on the way, and that's when you have a bad turn with it.
Aye, so
what's happened at that time?
Oh, there was so much, mate, so much. There was obviously Siobhan was pivotal in it, in that she was a nurse, so it's the first person who's ever dealt with me or seen me go through something like that. So I speak about it as a depressive episode, is usually how I refer to it, but just started with like no feeling good. And everybody wakes up and don't feel good some days, and you're maybe thinking, I don't feel good, or I'm struggling to get out of bed, or I've not got energy. It was like things like that, and just felt like my mood wasn't great. I was at Glenafton at the time, mate, and I hate saying it again, but I was flying at the time. We were doing well. We'd played in the Scottish the year before the final, we got beat, but even that season I was flying again, doing really well, and just from nowhere, just my mood just dropped, and it stayed like that for weeks. And it was about 4 or 5 weeks where I just barely left my bed. All I'd done for the first time ever as well, phoned in sick at work. I can't come in, not feeling good. And Siobhan, as I said, is a nurse, so she done 12-hour shifts. And basically, I would wake up in the morning, go downstairs, lie on the couch. She'd come back after 12 and a half hours, and I'd still be lying on the couch. Be about February, March time or something. So it'd been cold outside, but with French doors, I'd leave them open because I've got a dog. But I wouldn't walk with me, I'd just let him come in and out. I mean, it'd be freezing in the room, but I couldn't even feel it. Just wouldn't even notice. I don't even remember if I was going to the toilet or anything. Like when you get Walker's multi-bags of crisps, I'd just live off them, mate. I'd just eat, I don't know how many packs a day, but I wouldn't cook it and wouldn't do it, and live off them, drink bottles of Lucozade or whatever. And it just happened, weeks and weeks this happened, till eventually she said to me, you need to go talk to somebody. She's like, something not right, you need to go speak to somebody. Phone my doctor, and remember this day like it was yesterday, like you go in, I think on average you get about 6 minutes with a doctor, but you go in, and basically how a doctor assesses you is they'll have a tick box, and I didn't know this at the time, but they'll have like a list of, this is the symptoms, if he hits X amount of these and they've been there for over 2 weeks, he's got depression. So that's basically it. So I'm with lack of energy, my mood's not great, can't get up and about, struggling, feeling really anxious about going outside, don't want to see people, turn my phone off. That was another thing I used to do, just turn my phone off for weeks on end. Southie had just taken over at Glenafton. The players had sort of championed him as manager because he'd been a player at us and went to Arfley, but we'd kind of, when the committee came to us, we said go get him in. So I played quite a big part in that happening, but he'd just taken over, and I phoned him. I was like, I had knee issues anyway. I just phoned him, my knee's playing up, didn't go to training, stopped doing all that. And went and spoke to the doctor. Doctor's like, oh, you've got depression, anxiety. Going to give you this tablet, sertraline. It was for people who have had depression will know what that is. It's usually the doctor's first go to. You take 50 milligrams this a day. 4 weeks time you'll feel better. Remember, 4 weeks passed, mate, didn't feel any better. I hadn't changed anything. I just thought this tablet's going to make me feel better. I remember phoning Siobhan, coming to the doctor's like, oh, they've given me this tablet. I'll feel better in a month. This is good. And a month went past, just felt the same. And eventually, Southie's like to me, Clafton game was off. I think they were playing Kilburn or something, but it was off. And he said, you need to come down now. You need to come down. So I drove down early. He's like, come down early. I want to speak to you. I'm diving down going, he's got to tell me I need to go. Like, he's getting rid of me here because I've not turned up. And goes in, he pulls me. I'm walking into the change room. He's like, get in my office. And him and Potsy, mate, and Potsy has obviously works in mental health, is quite well known in the few men that as what's happening. I just break down, mate. Just everything just come pouring out. I'm like, this is what's happening. Like, I can't face this anymore. And Potsy, I remember Potsy grabbing. I'm getting emotional thinking about it 'cause I'm talking to Potsy about this recently, but Potsy just grabs me and says, mate, I've been there. He's like, you don't need to worry about this. You just need to speak to us. So we didn't tell the players or anything, didn't tell anyone, just said that I've sort of been doing rehab myself and I was ready to come back in. And then went and seen out the season, but getting back to football helped me get back into work because you had the routine, like, I need to be even a Monday night, I need to go to Cowan on a Wednesday for training, I need to be there on a Saturday. So that slowly introduced a wee bit of routine back to my life. I got back into work and just sort of worked my way through it for that time. You know, managed to come out the other end kind of feeling alright. Ended up leaving Glenafton, which was probably my biggest mistake in football, was walking away that summer. So BSC had phoned me and my head was all over the place. Obviously they were low in the league at the time. And I'd done well, I'd trained with Queen's Park and all, Gus had brought me in, so I kind of thought, in my mind I was thinking if I go for a decent season in the loan league, I maybe get a shout to go back up. Whereas if I'm still at juniors, maybe I'll be stuck here. So that was my reason behind it, but it was probably the biggest mistake I ever made was walking away for the Glens End because I loved it the 2 years, like loved it, and everyone down there loved me as well. And we'd won the Ardagh Cup, we'd finished fourth in the league twice, obviously lost in the Scottish Cup final, but they went and won the Scottish the year I left, man.
That's the thing.
I love that. Sorry, PG. I love that. I love that Potsy and Southie have sounds as if they've approached it probably the best way that anybody has in football with you. They've spoke to you, they've pulled you in. And
so I don't know if they had an inkling maybe that something was happening.
I know that they know that they had your back, that they weren't going to speak to any of the boys about what was happening and that. They had that confidentiality with him, and that's brilliant man management, and
that's something as well for being that, because you're still, you're 23, 24 year old, you're still young. Even again where you don't necessarily think you're that young. Sometimes it's better to be in a place where, like, you were obviously comfortable, you've got Potsy and Southie who are there to look after you and they know the situation, so there's certain leeways that could be made when you're not feeling great about it. What was it like when you went to BSC? Because I know BSC were in the Lone League and I remember playing against them at that time. They were a good side, but the Glens were a bigger club. You had a more community feel about that, where BSC was very, very plastic feeling, if I'm right.
Without it being bad to the club, and I don't want to come on here and bash clubs, mate, but you were turning up. I'd turned up for Glenafton a couple of other people every week. Like, I remember scoring goals and people singing my name and stuff. Do you know what I mean? And that sounds stupid, but that gives you a lift. Of course, it does make you love that. We're all, most people in football have egos, so we all enjoy that stuff. Whether boys want to cane me for playing up to fans or not, but like, I enjoyed that. I did. I was a goal scorer at the end of the day, so like the sort of having a spotlight on you was something I started to enjoy the more I done it. So when I went to BSC, mate, and you were turning up and you're playing against good teams, and we had a decent squad, but I mean, I'm turning up and there's 30 wains there dragging their parents along, and while that's great that the kids are going down and stuff and they're getting their free tickets and all that, I mean, there's no any BSC fans out there. There might be now, but at that point there definitely wasn't. I remember playing Talbot. We got Talbot in the Scottish, mate, and it was Mary Hill we played, and they had to cap the attendance to 600, and it was 600 Talbot fans, and we drew to each one. And I took it stinking, obviously being ex-Glenafton player, but we drew to each one up there, and you're kind of thinking, well, we're a decent side, we can make a go of this. He goes out to Talbot and gets scudded 5-1. And that was the point where I kind of realised, fuck, you might be in the Lowland League, but you've taken a step down here. So I lasted 6 months at BSC, and that wasn't King. The manager was Ian King when I went in, but used to work for the Sun. But he left after 2 games to go be chief executive Airdrie. So like, I've signed for somebody and he's left after 2 games.
See, for me, I know when we talk about football and junior football, and we know that West of Scotland football is something that we cover all the time. The weekend there, we were doing at the Kilburn Beef game, you see the magnitude of that. I realise sometimes for me, I know boys have got aspirations and want to play senior football. There's loads of clubs on our level that are bigger than even teams in that senior league.
You see the old West of Scotland, that 12, when it was 12 teams and fucking 3 went down and 1 went into a playoff, that was like the standard. That was unbelievable. And you're going to games, there's 400 or 500 people there every week. You go to Talbot and Pollock, you're looking at nearly 1,000 there every week. I mean, I remember going places we're going after and going, this is brilliant. This is what I want to do. So when I didn't have that at BSC, like, it takes a bit of an edge off you. Now, I had a decent 6 months here. I scored 14 goals or something, done all right, but I played under 3 separate managers. The club just felt like it was too early. It was a wee bit all over the place in terms of what they're trying to do. They were a boys' club trying to form. Now, they've also made loads of changes now, but I just didn't really settle. Although the car school that I was in was probably the best I've had. There was 5 years went for East Kilbride. I was in the Melons at the time, but East Kilbride boys, and 4 years ended up going to Meda a couple of years later together. Like Davy Gray, Ross McKinnon, Ryan Carmath, Boyd Drew Ramsey. Like, the car school was brilliant, but we felt like we were all me clicking the changing room and all. And it was like, it all came ahead one night after the game. I don't say too much, but just all clashed, mate, and I just went in and went, I need to go. And then East Kilbride bought me.
Fisticuffs.
A wee bit. I wasn't involved, obviously.
I wouldn't have been involved either. I'd have tried to pretend I would. At that time, the Lowland League was in its infancy, and see, to be honest, even
it wasn't
now,
what it is now.
Even now, I think the Lowland League is very. It's a huge gap between your good side, your Bonnie Riggs, and your Vale Leafons and all that. Who
even in Bonnie Rigg and that weren't in it, mate. It was
they were obviously east of Scotland. It's the juniors at the time.
Was it travelling, mate? Was it travelling? It must have been in that league.
See, going down to like
Gallifreydine and all that.
Newton Stewart and that. I was like, I remember some Saturdays going, what have you done? Like, what have you? And I remember there's boys who'd also come for juniors and went with me. Were probably thinking the same, because the juniors, you said, at that point when it was that West Scotland Premier, there was only 12 clubs. Like, every week it was a big game. Every week you didn't get games where you turned up and you could be off it. You had to, every week was a big game.
I mind that Glenafton. And the team when you were there and all that, it was like a right good side too.
You've ended up leaving there and going to East Kilbride just to stay on the football for a minute.
Worst decision of my life, that one.
Talk us through it.
That's your hometown team, I
know. A lot of boys won't say this. I done that for money, mate. That was it. They made me an offer I couldn't knock back. I maybe got to Glenafton, so Southie's in the process. I tried to do a deal to get me back to Glenafton, and East Kilbride phoned me, and he's like, if I give you X amount, will you sign the day? And I'm like, aye, of course I will. And that was it, mate. Sign a 6-month deal for a wedge of dough. That was it. I thought, why no? I'll stay here for 6 months and then see what happens. Made my debut against Gretna, something on the Saturday. We won 4-1. I had a good game. And then played Ashfield on the Monday night in a friendly, put me right wing back. I done my hammy.
Who were you chasing?
I don't know, mate. I couldn't even tell you. Berto? Berto might have been there at the time, actually. But I played, so
Raleigh Martin or something.
I was done my hammy. Obviously came back for the rehab and stuff. I just never got back in the team, mate. And I think there was a bit about it where the manager didn't sign me, so I was signed by the owner. And I think the manager's maybe thought, I don't want him, or maybe he did want me, but I felt like Billy Ogilvie, mate. So I just never really got on with him. And then we played BSC, mate. He started me for the first time in about 3 months or something, and he hooked me at half time, and I just packed up I remember Barry also saying, mate, you can't do this. I went, nah, I'm off, mate. Packed up my stuff and left. So that's the worst decision I've ever made, and genuinely I only done it because they phoned me and said, we'll give you this, and you come up to the office and you can pick it up. And I was like, all right then, of course I will. Obviously they played Celtic at that time and on, I was fucking cup tied because of Talbot game, so I had that as well.
Was that the time that you were there?
Mate, so I'm
in context, say what year it was then, so that's when.
So they played Celtic, so I just went out the night before and got smashed because I was like, I cannot face even going here tomorrow. And then was that, mate. So
How do you feel now that you do a bit of coaching with that? When you never played and you just packed your stuff off and left, do you agree with that? The way that
obviously
you done
not,
it?
mate. You shouldn't do that, right? But also, do you know my pet hate with managers, and it annoys me so much. Most managers have played, so why can I not be honest with you? And that was what I did. Like, I'm not going to slate Billy, but just his, why do you not just tell me then? Well, why not have the conversation, mate?
Aye, like pull you in and sit
Why
you down
leave
and
me
speak
out?
to
Like,
you.
the club
Aye.
have paid a reasonable bit of money for me. They've gave me a reasonable bit of money. Like, I was supposed to be a good signing at the time. I'd done well in my 6 months in the loan league already. So why am I not getting a sniff? There wasn't any boys ahead. You know, Jack Smith was there and he was flying, but there was no one else who was ahead of me for any real reason other than the fact that my face probably didn't fit really, and that was disappointing, mate. Because like I went to school in Scotland and stuff. I knew a lot of the boys. I obviously would have liked it to turn out differently, but it didn't. And that's just it happens in football, I suppose.
Aye.
And I didn't help myself. You should never do that at half time for any players out there. Obviously, you shouldn't. But I was just like, it's my first starting weeks. I've not been that bad. I've not been great, but I've not been that bad. You can't just hook me. And I think the worst of it was I'd been in Bristol for work, so I'd booked a flight home to come and play in the game. So I've went all this hassle, fucking getting back up the road and all that. And then he's like at half time, and that I just lost the head.
How was the game going? He's getting pumped.
No, but it's 0-0 at the time.
You don't,
Hadn't scored.
man,
Deserved to come off.
Mate, but it's different. Like, yeah. I think if somebody's having a nuke and it's still 0-0, you're not pulling them at half time, I think, because the game's still in the balance, it's still 0-0.
It just
Different
felt,
if it's a
in
doing.
my head at the time, it felt very much like
I think that was him giving you the last
That was
opportunity
him.
and saying, justifying it, saying
it was either that or that was he deliberately done it because he was like, I want to make a point here.
Aye.
And that's what it felt. It felt like to me I could have done anything in that first half other than score a couple. I felt like, see if it was going to be a tight game, I felt like I was getting the hook. And it just felt like, as soon as he said to me, as soon as we walked in at half time, I knew it was coming. Like, it felt inevitable because he'd been on my case, and I was like, he's going to hook me here. And you know, no player likes that, but it just felt like it felt set up to me.
Yeah.
See, at that time, obviously, you've been unhappy with your football. You're doing quite well at your work at this point. How's the rest of your life apart from the football?
I think at that time I was a bit up and down, but there was nothing really. I think the problem I had at that time was I was going out too much at weekends, so I was out every Saturday night, and most boys can get away with that. I can't. Like, I'm done for days after I go on out. So, and I've always been that way. I've never been a drinker ever. I didn't have my first drink until I was 22 or something. So I was, I think I was, for that period of time, I was sort of using my Saturdays as an escape. So after football, I was just straight to the pub. Obviously, the wee man, like, he was young, but Siobhan gave me too much freedom, probably. Where I could just go out with my mates and, you know, doing things I shouldn't have been doing.
Drink it, sorry, PG. Drink it plays a big part in it, because we all know what happens in dressing rooms and what boys are into now, you know what I mean? And I'm not wanting to go too much into detail and all that, but we know boys. I think a lot of that kind of know a bad lifestyle off the part can.
100%, mate. Like,
but I'm not saying that this is the issue in your case.
it was at that time, though. It was
But
like
drinking drugs is never going to be good for your head at this stage.
no,
is it?
no. So I'd went from sort of using football as an escape, and then like just partying at weekends. That then became my escape. So that way you get through Monday to Friday. I'll play my game on the Saturday. I'll sit on the bench on the Saturday as it was at that point. But I'll get my Saturday night out and it'll be alright. And then by Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're struggling. Thursday, Friday, you're getting excited again. And it's just, I was in that routine for too long. And I'd never really lived like that. And it just so happened I went down that road. But you don't have to be a professional athlete to play at the level I was playing at, right? You don't have to be elite level, but you need to do something. And I wasn't. I would go into training and stuff, but I'd put on a wee bit of weight for the first time. And I wasn't really shifting it as well as I should have. I was somebody who relied on pace quite a bit, so when that slowed up, you know, I had to try and adapt my game. And I remember at East Kilbride, you know, in the times I was playing, I wasn't as explosive I wanted to be. I wasn't as quick as I used to be. And it's just because I had blown a wee bit, I wasn't looking after myself as much. And it just culminated in me, you know, I had to take a drop down the levels, as I'm sure you know next, but I fell out of love with it. I was like, I hate this. I hate football, I hate going there. And that was the first time I'd ever really felt it. I've always, not always, but I felt like I had a bugbear with football because you feel like you should have done better. So that was always in my mind. I was always frustrated at that aspect. But Horrowford, Glenafton, even BSc, like I'd done well and I'd continued to do well and I was doing everything that you should be doing as a part-time football player. Like I remember driving from Edinburgh to Beef to train, mate, driving for 3 hours, getting the amount of times I've drove down the M77 getting changed while driving. But you know what I mean? And that's what I done it. Whereas when I went to East Kilbride and started to fall in love with it, I stopped doing it. I stopped putting in that effort.
We move on to 2017, where you've had quite a bad episode.
Mhm.
Was there anything different in your life at that time, or is
think
it
with
because I don't? It's my ignorance with the mental health stuff where that you were talking about earlier, with how you couldn't get off the couch for weeks and stuff. You're not looking after yourself properly. I understand being lazy, where I'm like, I can't be bothered getting up half the couch
Mhm.
because I just can't be bothered doing it. And that day,
Aye.
what's it like when you're going through an episode? What's the kind of stuff? Can you articulate what it feels like in
I
your
can
head?
try. Aye. I think the physical. I think that's the physical things that people don't see or they don't think about. But I spoke about this before. Like I feel, see if I'm struggling really bad, it's not that I don't want to move. It's like I physically can't. Like it's like being chained down to just being. I've said that before. Like being chained down to the couch, as if like I can't actually lift my arms or my legs or anything. I can't even comprehend standing up right now. In 2017, that sort of came back in a very similar way to what it had in the early, like the first time round. Was that it happened the exact same kind of way, pretty much, where I started not feeling good again, and I kind of knew. And again, I didn't speak about it. I didn't really tell Siobhan about it. Just slipped back into it, phoned in sick at work. I went to the doctor this time to get a sick line so that I didn't have the hassle of work. So the doctor just signed me off. I go into the doctor's mate and just say I'm struggling. The doctor just gives you a 4-week line. There you go.
That is easy to get at a minute, about getting the care, about getting the duty of care,
Is
and the care
that
of
an issue as
attention.
well? I mean, like
I think there's I mean, GPs have one of the hardest jobs in the world because they could walk in and say anything to them. So, and they get, as I said, they get an average about 46 minutes per patient. So, how they're meant to speak to me properly, there's just not enough mental health help available in terms of there's not enough professionals, there's not enough access to it. But I mean, that's a whole different story. But I just remember getting that sick line, and that takes a weight off your mind because you're like, that's work handled for the next month or 2 months or whatever it was at the time. And my symptoms were very similar, and I was off medication at that time, so they started me on a new med when I got my sick line, so it was very early on. This medication called mirtazapine. Holy fuck, excuse my language, but Jesus, the worst stuff I've ever taken in my life. Ballooned in weight. So mirtazapine's it's an antidepressant, but it hits certain inhibitors in your brain, so it's a weight gainer, makes appetite gainer. So I ballooned, mate. I was 14.5 stone at one point. And it makes you sleep. So I'd be sleeping 20 hours a day. Just sleeping. And remember, I've got a young kid then. Rory's what? 2. So, and I was emotionless. And I remember Siobhan said to me one day, she said she looked into my eyes and there was nothing there. She was like, you were dead behind the eyes. So that's the first time in my life that I remember feeling suicidal. And I think it was a lot to do with probably the medication and me not looking after myself quite as much as I should have. I just had no feeling, mate. Like it's so hard to explain that, but things would happen. I just wouldn't feel sad or unhappy or happy or anything. I'd just be like, I remember saying to Siobhan one day, and I'm almost going to agree admitting this, but I remember saying to her, like, I know I love you, Nuri, but I don't feel that right now. Like, I genuinely don't feel that. I just don't feel it. I felt like I was watching myself just float through life. And then, I don't know if I've ever told this story publicly, actually. Siobhan went out to work one day, and for some reason, I don't know why, for some reason she got sent home early. And by the way, sorry for this, a trigger warning to people listening or watching. Need to skip 30 seconds and go for it. But she went out to work one day, and I just went in the shower with a knife, mate. And I'm just standing there, and for some, I don't know, I don't even think she remembers why anyway. But she got sent home early, and I'm standing in the shower with a knife, mate, trying to cut my wrists, and Siobhan came in, like, what are you doing? And that was the first time that suicide had ever been something for me. And I don't know how serious I was about it. I know it was I think it was a cry for help. Now, looking back retrospectively, I sort of look at it and say, I think I was just begging for somebody to help me. I don't think I wanted to die then. I think I was just at a point where I was like, I need help. So that was the first time I'd ever visited hospital. Now, they didn't keep me in at that point because I was in a bed, which again points to the lack of services available, but they made me check in every single day. So I had to go up to hospital every day for a week and see this community practice nurse at the time. And we were due to get married in about 6 weeks' time. So I'm going through this, meant to be one of the happiest times of my life. My wedding coming up, go to Cyprus to get married, going to Ibiza straight after it. We were trying to plan it and get the last bits done, in my head's in another world. And that was really tough, but I think what got me out of that was the wedding. It seemed we got away and all of that happens. I came back and then we went to Ibiza for a week, and that kind of just turned my life around a wee bit, just gave me a new focus. Like, you're a married man now. Like, you need to sort this out. And that's when I remember just really thinking at one point, just sitting down. They changed my medication again. I remember just sitting down talking to her one night after the wedding and stuff. I was getting ready to go back to work, and I just remember saying to her, I'm done with drink, I'm done with everything else that comes with that. I'm going to stop all that. I'm just going to work. And that's when I just went, I'm going to work, and then we're going to get a house, we're going to get new motors, we're going to do all that. That's how I'm going to now be successful. And that was what I've done for the next 2 years.
Did you tell yourself that doing well at work was what was going to fix it?
This is what I needed to do. So I had to stop being sick for work. I had to go, because I knew that within the career I worked in, I knew I was talented. I knew I had all the ability to go and do well. I just had to do it, and I just had never really done it. Now, I think I'd just signed for a medal this time and all, and I'd had a bad knee injury. Ended up getting a couple of operations done, so I was out for 11 months, and manager got sacked. But that 11 months gave me time to just knuckle down at work. That's what you need to do. You're injured anyway, you're waiting on NHS and stuff. So I could just get into it. The boys ended up going and getting promoted, and like Gint's came into it, Brian McGinty came and took over. They go get promoted, and Gint's pulls me in the next summer and says, right, what you want to do? You want to stay here? I'm like, aye. He's like, well, you're going to have to get fit. You're going to have to actually work hard. And Gint's and HA were unbelievable with me. Just, they knew everything that had been going on. I spoke to them about it, and they were just like, we'll get you fit. And I mean, I'd train 2 nights a week. I'd train with HA another night. I would go down this Saturday before the games. HA would train me for an hour and a half. By the time I got back playing, I think I was 12 stone 2 or something. I was the fittest I'd ever been. And that was just by, again, having somebody who just understood it and just understood, see if I can get his head right, I can get something out of him. We were in the Premier at the time. I think they'd lost the first 6 games or something. I'd been coming off the bench kind of to get my fitness up. Played the Ants and the Scottish. It was 1 each at half time, and Gint's brought me on. I scored 2. I just remember thinking, that's me back. Like, finally, after all this, after like 2 or 3 years where it hadn't clicked for me, I wasn't feeling good. It was like 2018 now, and I felt like I was back. And then we played the Buffs the next week. The Buffs were top, and we were rock bottom, lost 6 or 7 in a row. And I fucking turned into Messi halfway through the game, mate. Take the ball for 30 yards of main box and go score. And I just remember, I put it on Twitter multiple times, obviously, but see, that celebration, mate, I struggle to remember a moment in football where I just felt that relief of everything, because I even the mental health stuff, just coming back from the injury, everything, my first start, scoring in a big game like that, Meda against the Buffs, it's a big game, and then I missed a penalty in the second half, but we won 1-0 anyway, and that was just where I felt like, I love football again.
See, obviously you're saying that, and it's at a much lesser scale. Me and Dak actually spoke about this, it might have been at the weekend, where what Dak had said about when you're a goalkeeper, like say the first cross comes in and you just go out and take it.
He's never caught a cross. Can he catch a cold?
Good at catching COVID, mate. Caught COVID a couple of times.
But you have that like as an outfield player, like your first touch that you get in the game, your first pass, and you tell yourself, oh, that's it, that's me, I'm going to have a good game today. See what you're saying at a much kind of higher level, a deeper level, I suppose, where you're saying, oh, I felt like I was back because you did this. See, if you started to have a couple of bad games, did you start to regress into some of the bad thoughts that you had?
Aye. So even at that time, I was still angry with football, because it was still like, I should be better. I should be doing better. Well, not at a better level, but like every week, I've always been, you should have done this better, should have done that better. So even, just remember that day, mate, and then I went on a wee purple patch after that. I can't remember how many games or goals or anything, but we went for losing every game to, I think, out in the last 24, we won 19 or something. We went on an unbelievable run. But I picked up an injury about 8 weeks later, so I'm flying, loving football, scoring, doing well, and then we go to Clyde from the Scottish and I do my groin, and then that was maybe just before the turn of the year, just before January time, like going into Christmas and that, and I'm out injured again for 8 weeks, And then obviously that takes you into 2019, and that's when things started to crash again. And I think a lot of that is to do with I've done everything right here. Feel like I'm doing well, work's going well, like I'm working a lot, but I'm still making training. I'm enjoying my football again, and then just that thing, mate, where that knock again of another injury, and it's like I just went, I can't do this anymore, and quickly snowballed. Obviously, yeah, I just started jumping back into work. I'm like, Gents, I've no got bother coming to training. I'm fucked anyway. I'll just go and work like mad for the next while until I get fit. And I never really got fit again. I barely kicked the ball from head again, just because obviously I ended up in hospital in April anyway. But the first 12 weeks of that year, it was just this, like, you go from there to just gradually going down. And I think the fact I'd picked up another injury and wasn't playing again was a huge part in it.
I don't think people understand if they've not been in that situation where, no, obviously to the extent with yourself, but I've always had a really bad knee, and I've had spells of 3 and 4 months where I didn't play at a time, and it impacts your whole life. And but see, to be honest, men in general, I think we're very selfish. Where it's like you think, oh, you just think about yourself. Where I think women generally tend to think about, they're a bit more conscious of what other people are feeling or whatever. Where for us, it's like, oh, this and that. You've ended up saying you've went from such a high to a low. If you don't mind talking about it, April 2019 is...
See before you do, Azza, because for me, mate, I think you show tremendous amount of courage, mate. I can see how tough it is just when you were talking about the experience you went through previously before your wedding, mate. And I've no spoke probably for the last 5 minutes because it's hard to listen to, mate, and it's and I hope you don't mind talking about it, mate, because hopefully it can, as you say, if anybody's struggling out there, they can get in touch with me. But I just want to say, mate, I think you're showing tremendous courage, mate, to talk about it, because it can't be nice, mate, when you want to talk about it, and we don't want to bring up all bad memories, mate. So I appreciate that, mate.
It's fine, mate. No, thank you. I suppose I sort of look at it now and think the trigger point was probably the injury, because everything had been going well up until then. So when you get that, I think I was out 2 months or something. I was out anyway, but it just felt like such a kick where I had worked so hard, mate, and people around me had worked so hard for me. Even like Siobhan had basically was a single mum because I was working and playing football so much, and then to get that and that for that to happen, I think I look back now. I didn't know at the time, but I sort of look back now and go, that was probably the start. Now that was late December, early January, I think. Someone might correct me on that, but it felt about that time anyway. And as I said, I'd been working like mad now in the nearly 2 years. I said I knuckled down to work, mate. I got 2 promotions and tripled my salary. Like, I was doing really well, and we were, I think we just bought a new motor. We were looking at houses and stuff. You know, a lot was changing in my life, but what felt like for the better. And then the injury happened, and my mood just started to turn, mate. The early part of the year, I kind of knew it was starting to turn a wee bit, but I just doubled down, mate. Just, you're alright, you just work through it, don't worry about it. Didn't talk to anyone. Come early April, I just remember feeling, this isn't good, like, this is bad now, and I knew it because I'd been here. But Siobhan had went in for a tonsillectomy at the start of April, and she was like bedbound for like 2 weeks, so I had to take a wee bit of time off work. And in my head at that time, I was like, I can't put this on her again. I can't go to her and say, look, I know you've got genuine physical, like, you've just been for an operation and you genuinely might be struggling physically, but by the way, my head's gone. So in my head at that time, it was more just survive the next few weeks and hope it turns. The biggest mistake people can make, and I know it's hard to talk about it, and I hate saying the cliched stuff like, oh, it's okay to talk, or you need to just go talk, because that doesn't fix it. But if you don't, you've got no chance. At least that gives you a chance. And that's where I went wrong. So the person that I would have usually relied on, I told myself a story that she wasn't going to listen to me because she was struggling with something, which isn't true. And Siobhan hates me saying that because, you know, she knows that's not true. But in my mind, that's where I was. And a couple of weeks of feeling like that and going down that path sort of into April, I just got worse and worse. But I was still at work. That was the only difference between that and any other time, is I just kept going to work. I was like, as long as you don't take time off work, you're alright. Again, just trying to ration. If I can keep going to work, I'll be alright. But I remember sitting in the office some days, and I had pure high pressure job. It was like so hard at that time, every single day was a slog, man. And I remember sitting there staring at my screen for hours, and then I'd come round and I'd be like, I've not done anything for about 4 hours. And then you're chasing your tail for the rest of the day. And just slowly my concentration went and went and went to the point where I'm like, I know I shouldn't be here. And then very quickly it escalated, so that I think it was 26th of April or something was the Friday, but that Monday the work put me up in a hotel, so I was away for the full week pretty much. And every day I was waking up, I was like, starting to feel suicidal, starting to have these thoughts again, feeling like in my head again, it was just, you've already been here before, you've already beat this off before, why is this back? Is this going to be it for the rest of my life? Is this going to happen every 2 years, every 3 years or whatever, 2, 3 years? Am I just going to keep going down this path? Like, I don't want my son to see this. I don't want my son to see me like this for the rest of his life. He's only 3 years old at that point. This isn't fair on Siobhan. She's going through her own stuff. I can't put this on her. I mean, I can't take time off work because I'm now an important person. Like, I'm running a department. I'm not just a cog in the wheel anymore. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And it just went, just feelings of worthlessness. Like, you're a bad dad. You don't spend enough time at home, so everything, you're not a good husband anymore. And then you just convince yourself, mate. And it's mad how powerful the mind is. And I know some people maybe listen and be like, you don't just go to suicide for that. But honestly, it can happen really quickly if you don't look after it.
No, I interrupt you, mate. And it's something, I think I might have mentioned this before. Somebody really close to me attempted suicide a few years back. And I remember him explaining it to me, and it was like a strange thing. He was like, I used to speak to people, and I would talk to them normally, and then walk away, and he says, all I could think about for days was that I said something to offend him. And he says, that seems dead kind of minuscule. He says, but see when you do that with every single person you've spoken to, and you do it every single day, and it just kept, he's like, it just gnawed away at me all the time. And you're saying like these feelings of worthlessness. It's alright saying where we all have wee moments where you're like, oh, I'm not very good at this or whatever. See if that is in your mind every single minute, every day.
And that was it. And a lot of it comes from being a dad. So like, I didn't know my dad growing up. I didn't know my real dad growing up. So that was like, so I've got a lot of issues there anyway. And so when I start feeling like I'm being a bad dad, or when I'm not connected enough at home, like I just spy, like it just, something in my mind goes. And it's obviously something I've dealt with in therapy, or trying to deal with in therapy still to this day. But that's where most of it came at that point. And I probably will get upset here, so just bear with me. But you know, I get to the Friday, and people have heard the story before, but you get to that Friday, mate, and I just remember waking up and going, what do I do here? Because you know you've got a decision to make, like, do I survive this, or am I checking out? And I don't want to sound crass about that, but that's how it felt in my mind. Like, it was a straight up decision. What do I do here? Like, I either try and stay alive or I don't. And I just decided that Friday morning, this is it, I'm done. Like, this is my last day on earth. And whatever's going to come after this is my family are going to be better. You tell yourself that they're going to be better off because you're like, I make this joke, and the reason I make this joke every single time is to try and stop myself from greeting. But like, I was like, yeah, about 400 grand on my life insurance anyway, not checking the T's and C's, and they wouldn't have paid it. But like, that's where my mind was. I'm genuinely sitting thinking she'll get about 400 grand in life insurance and she'll be alright. Like, she'll hurt for a year or two and my wee boy will hurt, but they'll move on, man. They'll have a better life without me. And that's just where my mind was. And I couldn't bring that back from that. But also, as I said earlier on, I didn't talk about it. I didn't speak to Siobhan or anyone. So get through my Friday at work. People who I worked with at that time, after everything that happened, people who I worked with, like, we would never, I guess, because you were jovial and stuff. And I genuinely think, and I hate admitting this as well, but I feel it's really important too, because if you want a real insight to how well this can go, like, I was relieved, man, because I was like, at 4:30, 5:30 a day, when I'm finished, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I don't need to carry this weight anymore. I don't need to think about this anymore. I don't need to be this person anymore. And it's not that I wanted to die, it's just that I didn't want to be alive in this state. I didn't want this to be my life anymore. And obviously, convince yourself that dying's the way out of that. So we had a work night out that night, and I thought someone had worked beside for years, so I was like, I'll just go for a while. I remember Siobhan phoning me. Siobhan, as I said earlier, gives me too much freedom for the most part, but she phoned me, she's like, look, been working really hard, we've barely seen you, why don't you just come home, we do what we call movie nights, come home, have a movie night, get sweets and that in, get crisps and get popcorn, We'll sit down. Now, I've never once said no to spending time with my family ever. And I said no that night, and it was only because what was going on in my mind and what I knew I was doing. And she'll say to this day, she's like, I knew something was not right, but I just didn't clock that it was that. I thought you were just wanting to go a night out. I didn't realise that that's where you were wanting to go. And then that was it, mate. Obviously, so I stay out for a bit during the night. Spent hours upon hours just going through my full life in my head, man. Just like, how have I ended up here? And then say, right, this is me, disappear into the night. I went to a chippy. I was like, that's my last meal, and spent about 27 quid in a chippy. Just for stuff I couldn't eat. But again, just like in that mad state where you're not in reality anymore. Like, you're not in reality, but you're like, I want to eat, I'll go eat whatever it was. I can't remember what I got, but like all sorts of the chippy. I'll go eat this, and then that's me done. And then thankfully, mate, I don't know who it was or why it happened, or I think it was my brain trying to protect me, but so I was standing at the side of this train track, and I knew that trains passed during the night. I knew it. I'd sussed it out and stuff. I'll be honest, I'd sussed it out and I kind of knew. I didn't know what time I had in, but I knew if I stood there for long enough, eventually something would happen and I could stand in front of it. And that's where I was, and I was just waiting. And then I heard a train coming, and I no word of a lie, and like I'm about a step and a half away from being out in front of that train, like genuinely. And I just hear my son's voice shouting my name. That's right, I hear my son shouting daddy, and I don't know if it was something in my brain just like interfering at that time or whatever. Obviously my son wasn't there, nobody knew where I was. I'd sent Siobhan a goodbye message, turned my phone off, made sure nobody could track where I was. I'd actually sat my phone in my jacket down and stuff. And I don't know where it was, I don't know. But it was just enough in that moment for me to be like, where am I? The train flies by me. And my memory's really hazy around it, but I just remember thinking like, what is happening here? Like what's going on? And I remember crying. I think I posted it the other day on Twitter because I found it when I was cleaning out stuff in the house. And then got myself onto Princes Street and just seen a bus, mate, just jumped in the bus and bought a ticket. And it was an Edinburgh to Glasgow bus. I bought a single ticket. I found the bus ticket, I still had it. And it was 3:33 in the morning or something, I think it says on it. And I just sat in that bus. I think the bus went back and forward 3 times, Edinburgh to Glasgow, and I just sat with it. The drivers probably thought I was steaming, so I just leave him. And I wasn't, mate, I wasn't feeling anything probably. I was just trying to picture how on earth I've nearly killed myself in Edinburgh on a night after a night out. I'd obviously been reported missing and stuff at the time. It become quite high profile in the news. It was all over everywhere because I was a vulnerable person and they were worried. And I got back to Glasgow eventually about 6 or 7 in the morning or something. And I just remember looking up at the screen, and all that is in my mind at this point was like, just stay where there's public, because I can't harm myself if there's people around, so just stay in buses or whatever. And I just seen there was a bus going to Aberdeen, and I knew in my head, maybe 3.5, 4 hours on a bus. That keeps me safe for that time. Just jumped on it, and then Aberdeen bus station is at like a shopping centre, but there's also a ferry terminal and that goes to Orkney or something. Mm-hmm. And there's a bridge, and I just sat in that bridge for hours, mate. And I was going to get a ferry to Orkney. I was just sitting going, I'll just go to Orkney and disappear. Like, what if I just do that? Well, no one will ever know. No one will ever find me. And I can just do what I need to do there. I can figure it out or whatever. I was still suicidal. That was my only thought, was like, can I keep myself safe for long enough? And then I think and then I changed I don't know how I changed my mind. I don't know what happened, but I got a bus back to Glasgow anyway, and I got spotted on the bus. So as soon as I got off the bus at Buchanan, police came up to me, handcuffed. Are you Ayr Connolly? Handcuffed me and took me to the Royal. And then that was it. Me, I went to Levendale after that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, mate. Honestly, mate, fucking boy. I shared, mate. I swear. And that's the thing, you come back and you've got these thoughts and you're putting a set of cuffs on you.
But I spoke to the police officer about 3 or 4 hours later, eventually, when they were leaving A&E. Siobhan got there and the police were like, look, can we leave you with him? And they said to me, they were like, we knew that you'd played football and that, and if we said it and it spooked you,
Run.
I'm not catching you. And that's what the guy said to me. He's like, there's not a chance I catch you if you run. So that's why they cuffed me. And then that was my first experience.
Wee man's basically telling you, you're talking about £400,000. There's no price on having your dad, but you know what I mean? And that's why that's just my personal opinion, why I think you've heard the wee man, because
It's been something, mate.
having you in his life, mate, is, and your family having you in their life, priceless, mate. You know what I mean?
And that's
I believe in wee things like that.
I've said that. I've spoke to psychologists and stuff about it, obviously, at the time, and they're just like, well, your brain's set up to protect you. So if your mind thinks of a way that it can protect you, then that's what it'll do. So I think that's what it must be.
As I mean, it's hard hitting, mate. It's fucking.
I guess wait till we get the most recent admission. There'll be tears in the room then.
See,
I'm not cut out for this.
just slightly coming away from it a bit, like just to generalise it, particularly now with the various lockdowns we've had and stuff, suicide rates are so high, particularly in men our age. Why do you think it's having a wealth of experience, I suppose, in a sense? Why do you think that men our age, and this is, I'm putting it to debate, why do you think men our age are so susceptible to these mental health issues and committing suicide?
I think there's a host of factors, mate. There's systemic issues where there isn't enough support. Now, I'm not going to bash the NHS, mate. They've saved my life on a couple of occasions, but there just isn't enough mental health professionals, so that makes it really difficult. So there's not enough psychologists, there's not enough psychotherapists, there's not enough psychiatrists to see everyone who's struggling. I think the men issue, people tell me men don't want to talk. I don't think that's true. I think I challenge that. We speak about time to tackle later, obviously, but I get loads of men coming to groups and talking. I think we just struggle to find the right platform for men to talk, and we make it difficult. I think it's changing. Society is changing. I spoke about that earlier. Like, it is slowly changing. Even in the 6 or 7 years that I've, not in the front line, but that I've sort of spoken openly, it's becoming more and more normal. But there's also a host of factors that no one wants to talk about. We touched on it earlier. People don't want to talk about drugs and what that's doing to society, or how that's impacting it. People don't want to talk about drink and what that's doing, or how that's impacted, or how addiction issues are being treated in this country. There's a whole host of stuff we could talk about that impact men directly, and that makes it tough. I think there's definitely as part of a personality thing where, yes, men, you're brought up to think a certain way. Like, I was brought up told to suppress emotions. I wasn't allowed to talk about things, and that's not my parents' fault. That's just how life was, and particularly for men. Like, my stepdad would never have told you how he was feeling. No chance. He just went to work and came back.
Yeah, you're for halfway. You're
And that's
in
what
a
you
tough
see.
area and all that. You can't show weakness.
I stayed in a council. You know what I mean? Like, people aren't going, that's not what people are talking about, and it becomes difficult. And I give you an example. We run a mental health. I'll not say where it is. It's in the East End, right? So I run a group on a Tuesday afternoon with guys with tans in their faces and all that, who come in and tell me the most vulnerable stuff in their life, but then they go out in the street and they're just totally different, because you can't do it. You can't do it in certain environments, and that's why it's very important that we start to create these safer environments for people, because, like I said, I keep hearing that men don't want to talk. I don't think that's true. I think we just need to find a way to get them talking.
I think something like, to touch on what you've said earlier about kind of feeling worthless at stuff and times, I think I might be completely wrong, but I think a part of the reason is, particularly for men like his early mid-30s and a wee bit older, I think becoming fathers at that stage was a big part. I don't particularly feel that bad about things, but I a lot of the time feel guilty with, like, particularly the podcast. I'm on my phone all the time because I do a lot of social media stuff and give up my time doing this and stuff, and it's like, I feel like sometimes I neglect my own children. And the day I had my wee boy today for a few years. Normally my mum has him on a Tuesday, but she was out, and I was like, I got a new laptop so I could do the editing for the podcast and stuff when we're doing the vlogs, and I was messing about that, and I swear, I need to put this away. I says, he's sitting there on his iPad, like, this isn't right, he's 2.5, nearly 3. I'm like, I was like to him, Lewis, what do you want to do? And then he just started trying to bite me and like jumped on me and fight me. I was like, this is, and I felt better after it. Like, but I think you have a lot of those feelings where it's like, you feel worthless at times in a sense, and even if your mental health's quite sound, I think that plays a part. And I might be wrong, but I think
for me, like, I wouldn't want to claim that I'm an expert or even know what I'm talking about, but the mind and everybody's situation is so different. I think if it was easy to deal with and it was an easy subject and there was an easy fix and there was a medication or there was somewhere to go and chat, which there is, but it still happens. So it's showing you that everybody's situation is different. Something will work for somebody else. Something will work for somebody and no work for somebody else. So I think the crazy thing is the mind is a crazy thing. The mind can do crazy things as well and take you places and all that. And I just think for me is the reason it's a problem is because it's not just generic. Everybody's got their different issues.
Everyone's got their different traumas. Everyone's got different things that impact how they behave as an adult, and their triggers are different. But I think what I've found, and I can only speak from my own experience. I'd never sit here and say this is advice or guidance or anything like that, because this is just based on what I know. But what I've found is I've had to get to know myself, and I'm still doing that. I mean, I'm 30 years old now, and I've got 3 kids and stuff. I'm not long out of hospital again, but I have to get to know myself, and to do that, I need to be honest with how I'm feeling. See if I'm just hiding it or sticking a plaster on it, then it's going to come back and bite me eventually. And that's the biggest learning that I've taken from all of this, is that I need to be honest with me first of all. So if I'm not feeling good, I need to understand that I'm not feeling good, and I need to tell myself firstly to get there, and then I need to speak to somebody. And I said at the start, I'll keep on saying, I'm not saying it's going to fix it, but I tell you what, you've got more of a chance if you speak about it than if you don't. Because if you don't, we can't help you. No one can.
I think there's lots of great yourselves with Time to Tackle and lots of different places and people can go and speak to and all that, and it's the awareness is there's a lot of awareness getting put on it, but a lot of it comes down to yourself, doesn't it? If you want to go and seek the help and seek the chat and that, I would always encourage people. It's not a sign of weakness in my opinion anyway. It's a sign of strength and showing how strong a character you are, and that's just the way I feel about it.
See, basically, I'm conscious of time because we're known. If you don't mind going to recently what's happened with you, where you've been quite open on social media and stuff about what's happened, and then we'll look at brighter things after that with Time to Talk and stuff. What's happened of late, because through this, me and you speak occasionally in the last few months and stuff, and obviously I don't know you that well, so I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't see it coming, but at face value it seemed like things were going all right for you. The Time to Tackle was going well. Was there a particular thing that triggered it, or was it just a build up of things?
So it's a PG and Dak exclusive actually, because I felt like a while all I was doing was doing podcasts all about mental health, but I've kind of stayed away from that this time deliberately because I was like, I need to give myself time to recover. So there's highly likely going to be emotions here, but I'll speak about it as best I can. I think obviously everyone knows I've got twin daughters now. They were born in March last year, and that's a huge life change.
And they're beautiful, as
I know, mate. That's Siobhan,
double
mate.
trouble, mate.
That's not me, but that's Siobhan. But I obviously came, and Siobhan had a horrible, so tough. Her pregnancy was really bad in hospital every single week for checkups and everything. Really high risk, stressful, really stressful. That on top of the COVID pandemic as well, not ideal for somebody like me who likes to be out and about and stuff. That played its part in 2020. 2020 was a really difficult year for me, but going into last year, sort of get through pregnancy and the girls get here safe, and you're like, relief, just relief. They're here and they're safe, and that is the ultimate relief for us. And you start setting about your life, being a dad to twins. You don't sleep. I didn't sleep for 3 months. We both didn't sleep for 3 months. You're up every 3 hours feeding. We both need to get up because there's 2 of them. So you can't take turns anymore. And we just survived from March to June. We were just surviving because it's just like, we just need to get through this. No sleeping, nothing. And then the girls start to settle down. They get into their own sleeping routine. Life starts to settle down a wee bit. Obviously, the restrictions lifted maybe May, June last year, and we started the Time to Tackle groups back up again. And I was just sort of doing that. I wasn't working anymore. Took a payoff in August 2020. Took a payoff and just walked away because I thought, I'm going to do something I want to do. We could see how Time to Tackle goes. Maybe some other things I'm working on. Picked up doing some coaching and stuff like that. Wasn't playing either. So it's obviously signed for St Rock's right before the pandemic, but just the pandemic came. Then we went back for, I think 6 games or something we managed it last season, and they cancelled it again. So in the summer there, I was, God rest him, Paul Kelly, but I just said to Paul, I don't think I'm going to be available, mate. And one of the greatest guys I've ever met without taking up the time on it. Can't believe he's not with us anymore, but he just understood what I was going through. He's another manager who I never played under for long, but wish I had more opportunity to play under him. Unfortunately, the pandemic took that away, and sadly he's no longer with us, but rest in peace, and thoughts for him and everyone at St Roxford that have went through that. But that again is another thing for me, no playing. So I'm not working full time, I'm not playing football anymore, I'm just trying to figure out what's coming next in my life. So in the July of last year, I'd started struggling again. Siobhan's like to me, let's just go away. So we went to Ireland for the full month, just off. And again, that's great because it gives you a month of an escape and takes your head away things. I'm going to walk down to the beach every morning. I'm being able to go and do whatever I want every single day, not get any real responsibility at this time. Just look after the kids and then just enjoy ourselves as a family for the month, and it was amazing. I had my 30th and stuff, and that was great. But then came back and just the reality hit that you're 30 years old and you're not working anymore. Take me tackle as much as it's great, man. It's difficult, really difficult to try and make anything a full-time job or a full-time business. Like, it's no easy getting money out of people. So that weighed on me a bit. Starting to think what comes next for me. Like, you've walked away for this really good career, and now you're a year down the line and you're no further forward than anything else. And that just started to weigh down on me a bit. And then the mood started to change. Just very quickly, just didn't feel good, mate. Got to October, and I was like, I'm going to end up in hospital again. I just knew it. Like, I'm either going to not be here or I'm going to be in hospital. Siobhan's birthday was coming up actually, and she did not a night away. She was going back to Ireland for a weekend with her pals, and I was like, just survive this weekend. Just let her go have fun for once. Do not take up her time with your shit. And again, excuse my language, but that's how I felt. Don't do this. Let her just enjoy herself for one time and deal with this when you get back. So I had the 3 kids myself, and it was an amazing distraction because I was all I could think about for that full weekend. As soon as I got the kids down to sleep, was I don't want to be here anymore. This isn't for me anymore. Like, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it just felt like everything I had done, everything I'd worked to up until this point, like I'd just made the wrong decisions every single time along the way. Just feelings of like you're back to square one after everything, after all the mental health work, after all the success of Time Tackle, after everyone putting your name in lights, after doing all these podcasts, after I spoke to thousands of people about mental health. Yeah, and it's just like, you're a fraud, man. Like, you are a fraud. You're just out there telling this story, still living off of this thing that happened to you 2.5 years ago, but yet you're feeling this way and you can't speak to anyone about it. You're not being honest. And it came to a head. There was we worked with St Mirren Charitable Foundation. They had a mental health tournament on the Sunday. I went and played at it, and I'd done a talk at it, and there was maybe 150 people or something in the room. And I remember standing up that Sunday and doing this talk, standing there telling the story like I've just told here. This is what's happened. And I think I can't remember exactly how I signed off the top. I put a picture of the kids up, and I was like, as long as I still have them, I have hope. Now, the night before that, I'd been lying in my bed suicidal. I drove home for that going, you're a fucking liar. Like, you're just out there lying to people now because you don't have any hope. So why are you doing this? Text Siobhan the Sunday night because she's been out a couple of nights now. I knew she'd come home on Monday. I knew she was in the like, her mum's got a house over there. I knew she was in the house. Text her, by the way, I don't want to panic you. You don't need to come home yet because I've got the kids, so nothing's going to happen. But you need to take me to hospital. Once you get home tomorrow, you need to take me to hospital because I'm not going to make it through this. And she it's a wee island, mate, so she couldn't even get off the island because it was late at night, so she's stuck. And she got home eventually the Monday night. She sent me to her mum's on the Monday during the day. So Margot, her mum's like, come down here, bring the kids down here. You're no sitting yourself anymore. And Siobhan gets in that night eventually, takes me up to A&E. I get turned away from the A&E door, so they're like, nah, you need to go to Levendale. They're going to see you down there, we can't see you in here. And I'm just like, everything in my mind saying just fucking run here, just run. Like, again, it's not the same thing of like kids will be better without you. Like, you are just now back where you've been previously. No matter what you've done, no matter all the good stuff that you've done, all the praise from people, all that, and it's all great, and everyone supports me, man. When I put anything on Twitter, people jump on it, and I'm so grateful. But I just felt like, see, despite all of that, like I'm still going through this. Like it just felt this feels unfair, and that's a selfish thing to say, but and I just checked out. I was like, this is it. So I suppose the one good thing I done eventually was I said to her, you need to take me to hospital, and that was only because the kids were there. So if I didn't have the kids that weekend, I don't know if I'd have been here today. But she took me into hospital, and they admitted me straight away. Spoke to me for 5 minutes, and like, nah, we're taking you in. Got me a ward, got me a bed, and all that sorted. And then I don't know how long we've got, but that's 6 weeks in Levendale this time around, man. I don't know how I'm still sitting here. I have no idea how I survived it. The reason I started I wasn't doing it every day, but every couple of days I'd update on Twitter what was happening. I was just trying to get stuff out of my head, like every single day, just waking up, just started self-harming for the first time ever. Never done that before. Started cutting my wrists. Had 2 suicide attempts in hospital. One, I just I'd seen the kids, mate, and you get to see your kids in a room about half the size of this, man. And I'm a pure active guy, like I'm dead active, dead. You'll see me a wee boy jumping all over you. Like my girls are 11 months old now, but they crawl over me because that's what I encourage. I say me Rory run about play football with him, coach his team. See your kids in a room half the size of this, mate. I'm doped up on all sorts of medication. I remember seeing them, spending an hour, 45 minutes, I think it was, because COVID restrictions or something, then going back to a room. You're locked in a room pretty much because of COVID. I just remember going back to the room and just going, I think that's my goodbye. Like that's it. And obviously you're in a room in a hospital, so you should be safe, but there was a bin, mate, and now you get the pedal bins and they've got a steel rod. Snapped the rod off, mate, and just started trying to slash myself until, and I just remember the nurse running in. I'm sorry for the graphicness of this, and I'm sorry if I trigger anyone, and again, skip a minute if you need to. A nurse running in and stopped me, and I remember going, fuck, you can't even do that right. Like, you get to this point and you still can't do this right. And it just kept getting worse for there. It just felt like I not went through my Twitter at the time. If people go look at my Twitter about October time, you'll see the sort of updates I was given, but it was just like every single day it was just like I can't get through this, man. I can't. And they eventually stopped. They didn't stop me seeing the kids, but they said, look, we think you need to take a couple of weeks no seeing them, because it's when they're coming down, you're then going away, and I'm saying I'm the worst dad in the world. Like, I'm not there for them. They're a wee girls are 6 months old or something, and I'm at the house, I'm away. You know, Siobhan's now a single mum because I'm here. I'm not seeing Rory, and it was just this constant thing of just the worthlessness, the feelings of like you're the worst guy imaginable, and how I survived, how I got through, I have no idea. Like, I was just in a trance for 6 weeks probably. Eventually, I just managed to get through it. I don't know what dragged me out. Probably the kids. But even since then, mate, I got released early December time. Even since, man, even last week, I was having suicidal thoughts. So I'm now 4 months from when I first went to hospital. And this is now, and this is why I do it, and this is why I talk about it in the way that I do, because I just look at it and go, I need people around me. I need people to be helping me. I need people to support me. And the only way I can get that support is if I tell people what's actually happening. So if I can give anyone anything, that is that, like, if you're feeling in any way like you're not good enough or whatever's going on, like, it can be fixed. It can, whatever it is. Come and speak to people about it. Come speak to me about it. Message me, and I'll try and talk to you. But, like, I just believe in the power of people. I believe in. That's why I'm so open on social media. That's why I've agreed to come on here and talk about it. Because, as I said, I've deliberately tried to avoid doing stuff like this because it is very raw for me still. You know, I look at my wrists at night, mate, and just think, who is that person? Who's the person who done that to you? And it was me. And that's so hard to understand. It's so difficult. But I mean, that's just where your mind can take you if you don't look after yourself. And even if you do look after yourself, sometimes you might still end up there. But you give yourself half a chance if you at least try. And that's where so many times in my life I've made that mistake where it's not that I've given up, because that's unfair, because even people who do sadly lose their lives, it's not that they've given up, it's just that the pain is unbearable, man. And I know that pain. And I just think, like, we need to do something. And the only way we can do something is if we do it for each other, because we can't get through this alone. I can't get through this alone. And I don't think other people can. So we need to pull together. We need to be talking about this. We need to be doing stuff like this. And I'm not saying you need to bare your soul in the way that I might do or whatever, but people need, when this needs to change, man. Like losing 800 people a year in Scotland, like at what point are we going to all club together and say, do you know what? Like, it's actually make a difference here. And that's why I do it. It's no for any. I want my wee boy to be, if he's, I hope he never goes through this, but see if he does, I want him to know like that, where the support is, where he goes and gets help. Because I didn't. And I nearly lost my life more than one time. And I'm very lucky still to be here. And I hope that I never go down that road again and I never end up in that place again. But I can't guarantee that. But the best I can do right now is try and make sure that we leave have a better place behind. Because mate, it's horrible. Every single day you're hearing about it. And I don't ever want to be a statistic.
Yeah, it's harrowing listening. Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I've heard quite a lot of the stories because I've listened to quite a few stuff, quite a few things you've been on in that. It's difficult sitting listening. I can only imagine how you feel. I mean, I can see his face how it is. You know what I mean? Just listening to it and hearing it. So we appreciate you sharing it with us, mate. We really do.
I think you don't give yourself enough credit for who you are as a person, the jobs you do. You're not just doing great work with the charity and for mental health, the work you do for your family and the dad that you're to them. I think you should never play that down, mate. I think what you do in your life, and listen, you still had a fucking better football career than what I was doing. You had a better football career.
But if there's anybody needing a fact striker to sit in the bench
I
for the end of the
would
season,
take your ass. We've got 5 games left, man. But no, in seriousness, mate, you've done well at football. You've played full-time football. It's just trying to see things in a positive and thing way. But listen, who am I? I've not to. I'm just telling you for what I know for you, the stuff you're doing out there. I tell you what, see if it wasn't for your charity and your words of wisdom and the way you put things across and how much you bring up on social media and the awareness that you get, and a lot of other charities out there as well, statistic would be a lot more, unfortunately. And I really believe that. I think that if you look at probably people in your group and all that, and I know that that'll always be anonymous and stuff like that, but about you and about the other people and other supports there, the work that you and Siobhan and that do, and I think that unfortunately what we don't want to see is unfortunately and realistically that could be more, do you know what I mean? So you're doing amazing work, mate, and it's hard to hear and hard to listen to because we're all dads here, do you know what I mean? And we know, but never give yourself a discredit for the person that you are and how important you are to the people, mate, and all your pals and all that. You know what I mean? You're a good lad.
Look, this is the longest podcast we've had in ages. This is one of the ones where we could sit here for hours and hours and talk to you. And we really, mate,
and it's important today, so because there shouldn't be a time, as we've spoke with Az, it shouldn't be like it's got to be an hour on that. We've got to address the situation where the way it should be and speak about it the way it should be and get the time necessary.
Well, let's
I
move
try
on
to find something a bit positive, a lighter.
Well, let's move on to the good stuff then that you've done, and obviously we'll not be able to get into the complete details on Time to Tackle the new, and maybe something. Well, it's definitely something we've spoken about, but we'll be doing hopefully in the next couple of months. Tell us a wee bit about Time to Tackle and how people can find you and what kind of services you offer?
So I suppose right now, I feel grace me to tell the story about where it came from. So I think people have heard it, but obviously I've spoken a lot about football in a negative term tonight, but I do love it. Like every single day I watch a game or two of football, whether I'm watching it because I'm doing analysis for another podcast that I do, or whether I'm just watching it because I want to watch it or whatever. So like football consumes my life, mate. So basically all I think about, other than like being a dad or whatever, but like I just love it. I do love it, and I've not always loved playing it, but I love the aspect of playing it when results don't matter or you're not caring about your form. You're just going having fun, mate. So you go play 5 with your mates, best thing ever. So my first stint in Levendale Hospital, I'd spent 2 weeks in a locked ward and not been outside. And people have heard the story, but I feel it's important to say it because my wee boy's my best mate, and if it wasn't for him, I don't think Time to Tackle would have been here. And that sounds crazy, he's 3 years old at the time, but basically the doctor comes to me and says to me one day, look, we're going to let you go outside for an hour tomorrow. I've not been outside pretty much, but you need to stay in the hospital grounds, but Siobhan, your wife's going to bring the wee boy down. And the story goes that Siobhan tells Rudy this at home, and Rudy says, well, we better take Daddy a football then. Now that's a 3-year-old who knows me better than I know myself at that point, because I think I hate football at that point, but I don't. So they come down the next day, and there's a picture. It went mental on Twitter at one point when I shared it, but there's a picture of me and Rudy cherishing this wee Nike football around. And I remember just thinking that night, like, starting to piece together maybe stuff that had happened, and even you look at my second admission, I wasn't playing football, I started thinking that maybe actually, while football had been difficult for me for a lot of times, and I was frustrated a lot of things, it was also a massive escape for me. It, like, you don't know, see when you're in a good dressing room, which most of the ones I've been in have been, like, think about my career, it's very rare that I've been unhappy with the boys or who's there. There's nothing better, mate, than going to training and having a laugh and a joke, and then training a couple of nights a week, and then going and getting a result on a Saturday. Like that was my social life. That was it for me. So that probably gave me an escape that I never gave it credit for until I'm in Levendale Hospital and I'm chasing a bit of size 1 with my wee boy, and realising, by the way, this means a lot more to me than I know.
Aye.
And when I came out, then I started speaking to Siobhan about what can we do. Like, surely we can get people together, get people, well, not a support group per se, but can we get people at the house? Can we get them to come to something like this? I think I spoke about it for about 2 months, and she just got sick of me, and she's like, "Go and sit down and just book a pitch then, and stop talking about it. If you're going to do something, just do it." And that's Siobhan in a nutshell. Like, she's actions over words all the time. I just sat down one night, made a Twitter page, booked a 5-a-side pitch down at Rook and Glen, had a room next to it, came up with a name and just went, let's see how this goes. And it just took off. Now, we've had a difficult journey. Like, there's been so much amazing aspects of it, and I love doing it, but also we've bitten off more than we can chew sometimes, and it's been difficult trying to balance all of that. And at one point I was driving all over the full country delivering groups from Fife to Falkirk to Broxburn to Glasgow to Edinburgh, and I'll be honest, it got too much for me, and it played a part in the downturn that I've experienced recently. So looking at where I am personally now, I'm thinking about everything that we do. What do? We play football. We don't keep scores. We don't care about your ability. We don't care what age you are. I don't care if you've ever played football before in your life. If you feel like you might enjoy running and kicking the ball about, which I know I do, then come and find us. You'll get us on Twitter at Time to Tackle. But we play football, and then we ask you if you want to come into a room and chat. You don't need to. And this isn't mental health specific either, because I make this joke all the time as well. But, you know, I've got 3 kids, man. I know what stress is like. Whether I'm struggling with mental health, depression, anxiety or not, I know when they feel stressed. So if you need somewhere to be at the house for a couple of hours a night and you want to kick a ball about, then come and find us. Now, we're only running 2 groups at the minute, and again, that's more down to my personal circumstances just now. I'm still in the midst of recovery. I'm still seeing CPNs and psychiatrists and stuff fairly often. So we will start to ramp that up and be in different areas. But right now on a Wednesday, we're in Pollock Shaws, 7 till 9. And a Friday, we're in Paisley at the stadium. The Smiza Stadium, there's a dome, an indoor dome next to it, 7:30 to 9:30. And as I said, it's just playing football for fun, and then having a chat. We'll put on tea, coffee, give you a couple of biscuits, and if you want to talk to us or you want to speak about it, that's fine. But the conversations at Time to Tackle have ranged from talking about suicide attempts to somebody talking about making super noodles for their dinner and everybody laughing at them and having a joke. It's very, very laid back. It's just about getting people out. And like I said, if you're suffering with depression, anxiety, come and you'll enjoy it. See if you're stressed out because your veins are doing your nothing, you also enjoy it. Like, we don't want to say that you need to have something. We just want, I want to use, I know the power of football. You boys know it. This podcast shows that the power of football, the West of Scotland, the country wide, whether it's going and watching or going and playing with your mates or coming to a group like ours or going and playing at a decent level, football can just give you so much relief from the stress of life. And we've just tried to harness that as best we can. And we seem to have stumbled upon something that works. And yes, as I said, we've had our challenges. We're a new business. I mean, I started it as a community group, and before I knew it, we had a business, and everybody wanted to help us and support us and getting pulled in all different directions. And so we've sort of scaled back a little bit in the hope that we'll figure out what comes next for us. But at the heart of it will always just be Time Attack will be somewhere where you come and just get away from the stress of life, and that's all it is.
Best place to finish it, I think.
Aye, and hopefully we can get done, and
Well, we will be.
if the groups and yous are happy, we'll get done and we'll do a wee bit and all that. And we, you know us, we'll try and make that light-hearted as well.
Absolutely.
But I just want to say, just to finish up, as it's been a real eye-opener, mate. It's really got me this episode, and I thank you, mate, for a tremendous amount of courage, mate, and I wish you all the best, mate. And as a pal as well, mate, and as a podcast, we're always here to talk to you and that as well. And thanks very much, mate, for being so
Appreciate it. And by the way, I
open and
appreciate the
honest.
donation before Christmas time. So
Nah, mate, it was the least
people who don't
Listen,
know, they donated £1,000 to Time to Tackle, which was massive.
No, it was just felt a good thing to do.
We're in a position where, and it's similar, I suppose, to yourself at times, you're in a position where you can sometimes possibly help people. I mean, we get to do something we love doing, and that was just a good thing that we were able to do, which we were happy to do. And, mate, genuinely really appreciate you coming on. It's good to be back. It's good to be talking
Good
about.
to be back, but it's hard hitting,
Aye.
and hopefully, if anybody out there struggling, they know how to get in touch.
I'll put
with
some links and stuff in the bio for the
But
episode.
let's not forget, as I was a baller.
Mate, if anybody needs me to sit on the bench at the end of the
As
season,
I was a baller, and he's
You
a
might
free
get a couple of
agent.
goals.
He's a free agent, so he is. Do you know what I mean? So he's there for the taking. So I'll speak to you as I once we wrap this up.
Oh no, I've got him for St Peters. I've already agreed at the moment.
Aye, wrap that up. But as a thanks, pal.
No, mate, appreciate
Cheers
that.
for having us,
Appreciate that. Thanks for watching, everybody. It's good to be back. Appreciate this is a really hard hitting subject. I will put links in the bio and stuff. If there's anything you need help, we're always there. If you speak to any time, Aaron's the same as well. Just get in touch. They're always there to help. But thanks for watching. It's good.
Thanks, Trips.
Take care. Cheers.
Take it easy.